I'm Stuart Fraser, the son of Alan Fraser, who was a major beekeeper in New South Wales, Victoria and South Australia. And I was a major commercial beekeeper centred in Bendigo. It was either going to be Inverell, Albury or Bendigo that he settled down because he had to educate kids. So I've lived all my life in the Box Ironbark but used Bendigo as the centre. I've worked at the centre of New South Wales, into South Australia, into South Gippsland, and right across the whole of the northeast from Bendigo. And I've been retired for around about, totally retired, I reduced its numbers. I stopped being a major commercial beekeeper the year before the major fire at Hillsville and at Marysville. Wow. And in fact, if it had been a major fire there, at least half the state's bees would have been burnt. So then I kept a few bees to be interested in life. So I've only got rid of those for the last 4 or 5 years because of arthritis. What actually happens to the trees run by forestry is that they run the forest for timber. In order to run it for timber, you have to suppress other values. And they always do. They have to. They have no choice. So they stop the forest from maturing and they keep it young because young trees produce more wood. They say that they're improving the health of the forest, but what they really mean, they're improving the timber production from the forest. That's the health. What have I seen? I've seen enormous nectar crops out of the Welsford forest. I've also seen the understory improve. When they started to reduce the amount of timber they took out, we saw the understory improve. In fact, it's as good as I've ever seen it at the moment. Also because they don't burn in the Welsford. They burn a small patch close to Bendigo, 2 small patches, and that's it. They have to take out in the Box Ironbark ironbarks that are 65 centimetres across, otherwise they lose them and not allowed to cut them. So they never let a tree get bigger than that. The yellow gum and grey box were slightly smaller because they don't have the bark width. But that is the reason why they cut them at that width. We have patches here and there, and they are patches that aren't connected. The Welsford forest is a connection forest. It connects the Bendigo Creek to the Campaspe River. That is a magnificent thing and would allow us to perhaps put connections across into the Heathcote forest, and that's a possibility. But the main reasons, the main alterations we have seen in Box Ironbark is it's never allowed to mature. And suddenly we have a chance to see it grow old. And it's a very slow growing forest, so it will take a long time.
And why do you believe that mining interests should be secondary to environmental protection?
Well, it's not only secondary, it's not necessary. They can work from outside. Because if the Welsford was a park, hopefully a national park, but if it was, then they're not allowed to mine at 100 metres below. But in Bendigo, we had mines done with pick and shovel and men's sweat that went from Spring Gully to Eagle Hawk, which was 7 to 10 kilometres. And they mined it that way. They didn't put holes down everywhere. So in the Welsford forest, they could, from where they're standing at the moment, do all the mining they ever want, so they don't need to. The problem with mining is it isn't careful. It can be only careful to a certain point. And so we always get damage, and we get damage that is permanent, as it happened in the mine that's just closed down over the last 10 or 15 years called Cashalton at the Kangaroo Flat side of Bendigo. They were going to fix it, and it's just one great mullock heap. And they've walked away, and the way you do it is this. I wish to sell a mine, so I sell it for next to nothing, because I don't want to repair it, which means I sell the need to repair it. And of course there's never enough money, so it just stays there, or the government has to do it. And every mine that's ever happened in the Bendigo district, that's what happened. And what has always happened when we're complaining about this, no, we're going to do it correctly this time. Every time. Because if they have to work on private land, there's a whole lot of restrictions. No restrictions in a forest, especially if the government wants it.
That's right.
And that's what that's all about.
It's fairly bleak, isn't it?
It is never protected. That's really what it means, is they've given it the minimum possible protection. And you would have to and we thought, and we still think, that perhaps they don't want to protect it at all, and if we get changes of government or something changes, they will start doing something. Such as we need the wood. I've seen all this before, you see, and the trouble, that's why the old must die, because the young aren't cynical. Welsford is a great forest because it has all classes of ironbark. It blooms actually as a forest from January till the following September. No, the following, yes. It is really, it is September. And so you get long lengths of blooming. But the difficulty beekeepers have is this may be the only income this year, maybe the only honey flow this year, so they'll become extra important. It takes 15 years for a young man to learn how to be a commercial beekeeper of this quality. And so we do not want this to happen. If for no other reason than at least a third of what we eat is reliant on them now, because there will not be any wild bees, no wild bees at all in Australia. And places like the Welsford are going to be key places to maintain the health of commercial beekeeping. And beekeepers, what do beekeepers want? They want everyone to leave it alone. The more you leave it alone, the better it gets. That's really what these forests, they need to be left alone. They straighten themselves out. They don't actually need us. And the older they get, the better they are at nectar production. And it's nothing to do with thinning it. Thinning doesn't increase nectar production. It just increases wood production.
I think even the thinning trials of the ironbarks up here have shown that it's so negligible, the difference that even the thinning makes. It's just...
It's a joke. Yeah. It was done to produce wood, always to produce wood. Yeah. It costs you nothing to keep it for the future. It costs you nothing to hand it on to future generations, reasonably intact. And so the future generations can actually in the end say thank you, or they can curse you.